Have you ever wondered how serial killers were punished in other countries? Well, I have. And today, I was shocked by the sentencing these two killers received. So, buckle up and let's head to the countries of Colombia and Peru. During the 1970s, it was a strange time in Peru because it was as if young girls were disappearing in thin air. But they would quickly figure out the cause and almost witness another child being taken. One day, a group of Ayacucho's people witnessed a young girl being lured by a creepy man. The people of the tribe quickly stepped in and began beating the predator senseless. They then stripped the man of his clothing and began to bury the man alive. And this would have sealed the man's fate until an American missionary walked up to the scene. Then, the missionary convinced the tribespeople to give the man to the police. However, authorities never took him into custody and simply just banned him from Peru, and it was their biggest mistake. Pedro Lopez was the name of the predator, and he went on to Colombia and Ecuador to continue his murderous rampage against young girls. Pedro even described how much he enjoyed seeing the light leave from his victims' eyes when he strangled them. He would also perform rituals and violate the corpses. Now, after killing hundreds in Peru, he had racked up about the same total in Colombia and Ecuador. Pedro had mass graves as well, the biggest one being filled with 53 bodies. And the crazy thing is, Pedro never stopped killing, even when the police were hot on his trail. But due to his carelessness, this is exactly what led to his arrest. Finally, in 1980, Pedro Lopez was convicted for the murder of 110 young girls, even though the kill count may be over 300. Now, this is the shocking part that I was talking about. Pedro Lopez was only sentenced to 16 years in prison because that was the maximum sentence in Ecuador. And to make matters even worse, he was let out 2 years earlier due to good behavior. But a judge didn't deem him sane, so he was sent to a psychiatric hospital. Unfortunately, that didn't last long either, because he was released and declared sane. Also, Pedro was supposed to report to the police each month after his release, but he never did. So currently, Pedro Lopez's location is not known. A war raged on in Colombia that left thousands of citizens homeless during the late 1960s. But for Luis Garavito, this was perfect because no one would realize that children were going missing. However, Luis was very careful about his crimes, as he would often dress the part, and sometimes it'd be a priest, a farmer, or a street vendor. Then, once he lured the child in, Luis would walk with his victim until they were tired and weary. Once deemed vulnerable, he would corner the victim and bound their wrists together. Now this is where the real torture begins. He would bite, sexually assault, and sometimes even decapitate his victims. He was soon dubbed La Bestia of Colombia as more bodies of the youth piled up. But unfortunately, law enforcement didn't notice until 5 years later. In 1997, a mass grave of 25 children was accidentally discovered, and this caused the police to launch an investigation. Now, it wouldn't take long for the police to arrest Luis Garavito because his own girlfriend aided in his capture. She even provided his belongings as evidence. And hours later, he was caught and interrogated by the Colombian police. He quickly confessed to the murder of 147 young boys and that he threw their bodies in unmarked graves. But in the end, Luis Garavito was charged with 189 murders, and he was initially sentenced to 835 years in prison. But you know, Colombia is a very tricky country, so he only received 22 years due to his cooperation with the police. Thankfully, he did die behind bars in October of 2023. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in next week for some more true crime.